The prison transport shook hard as it pierced Cathar's orbital drift, dragging behind it a chain of cargo pods like the spine of some long, extinct predator. Through the viewport of the lead segment, the prison moon came into view. Not a sphere, but a broken ring world, half consumed by time. Its carcass was tethered to the void by decaying gravitic anchors. Inside, the pod stank of rust, heat, and resignation. Lamps flickered against sweat, slick walls, casting light on faces long past hope. Dozens of humans sat cuffed to the floor, arms shackled, eyes hollow. No one spoke. A few trembled, most just waited. Jansen Corkman sat near the back, spine straight, wrists bound, head bowed just enough to make him forgettable. He was skeletal beneath his orange rust uniform, cheekbones protruding sharply, lips cracked. His hands hung limp. His gaze, however, was fixed, low and distant, but aware. No officer called his name. No scanner paused at his tag. Corkman moved like background radiation. Always there, never noticed. 2 Elisari guards patrolled the aisle. Their forms were tall and unnervingly narrow, limbs double, jointed and encased in smooth, scale-like armor. Beneath their helmets, their faces were hidden by translucent breathing membranes that pulsed faintly with color. One of them, Lieutenant Corrin, paused to examine a shackled man on the left row. He tapped the butt of his plasma staff against the prisoner's leg. The man winced. Corrin tilted his head, organic resource class Delta. He said in gal trade, no augmentations, no uplink ports, disposables. The other, Vrex, chuckled in response. We're hauling dead weight again. Might as well process them here. Command wants warm bodies for orbital scrap labor. Corrin said, better to burn them cutting apart their own relics. He passed Corkman without pause, didn't even scan his file tag. 3 seats over, a younger prisoner, the kind still foolish enough to have anger, napped his head up. We're not cargo, he growled. We're not animals. Vrex turned with a hiss. In one motion, he unhooked the weapon from his belt and fired. A wave of vibrational energy slammed into the young man's torso. His scream twisted into a wobbled gurgle as he convulsed and dropped, unmoving. Silence fell. Speak again, Vrex said coldly, and I'll make sure the next pulse liquefies your lungs. Farther down the line, another prisoner, a frail man with a leather cord around his neck, was yanked forward. Corrin tore the object free. It was a circular medallion, worn smooth by age. Probably a memory chip or heirloom. Corrin sniffed the air. What's this? Primitive charm. He crushed it underfoot. The prisoner didn't resist. He just closed his eyes. Corkman watched everything. He didn't blink, didn't shift. He had no response, just the steady awareness of a predator watching through a human shell. A klaxon blared overhead. A robotic voice echoed through the corridor. Sector 7 personnel to Dockline Theta. Unit E-transfer. Designate orbital demolition. Vrex tapped his staff once against the floor. On your feet, Wastrels. Time to earn your oxygen. The shackles disengaged in sequence. One by one, the prisoners were prodded down the narrow gangway toward the external lock. Corkman was among them, wrists still bound, legs unsteady. No one looked at him. The team reached Dockline Theta, a narrow spine extending into open orbit. Through the viewport, Cathar's jagged structures twinkled with defensive lights and decaying solar panels. The ship at the end of the lock was small and forgotten. Scars from old kinetic blasts still marred its hull, its ID barely legible beneath flaking paint. VGS obelisk, one of the guards muttered with contempt. How the void is that thing still sealed. It's not even on the system's manifest, said the other. Should have been stripped to chassis cycles ago. Still powered. Engineering says some internals are salvageable. Let it rot here until the scientists finish their vivisection. Corkman and 3 others were ushered through the entry corridor and into the ship's central hold. The metal groaned under their steps. The guards pushed them into separate maintenance compartments. Corkman was the last. The airlock hissed behind him. He was alone. The VGS obelisk was dead metal and forgotten wars. Scorch marks ran along the walls. The scent of rusted blood mixed with coolant. Tools lay untouched beside a shattered console. Above him, conduit lines were frayed and uninsulated. One of them still pulsed faintly with residual energy. His restraints locked magnetically to a floor plate. He waited. Then, slowly, deliberately, Corkman shifted forward and brushed his fingertips across the nearest panel. It didn't respond. He didn't expect it to. He closed his eyes and exhaled. The Elisari believed Protovox had died with the collapse. Unspeakable, untranslatable, erased from all machines, but they were wrong. Corkman had carried it, spoken it. He was the last surviving member of Vox Bellum, and the last human alive, who could still speak the language that couldn't be heard by AI. Then he spoke. The sound was not a language, not to the untrained ear. It was vibration rendered as syntax, frequency forged into command. A single syllable rasped like bone on metal. The next reverberated like pressure expanding in the ear canal. The third cracked like dry earth beneath tectonic stress. Each phoneme in Protovox had purpose. Each resonance meant authority. The sound traveled through steel, through polyfiber, through dormant circuits untouched for decades. Warning subroutines flickered to life, then shut down. Security pings logged anomalies, then erased themselves. The ship wasn't rebooting. It was remembering. Corkman remained still, chained to the floor as the sound moved deeper. Echoes bounced through buried subsystems. Long, idle relays clicked to life. A control panel at the far end of the chamber lit up faintly. A sensor spike triggered a hidden receiver buried inside a communications array long classified as non-functional. And then silence, a kind of silence that felt unnatural, like the absence of air in a sealed chamber. Even Corkman stopped breathing. No fans, no environmental hum, not even the faint click of cooling metal. Then the voice came, from nowhere, from everywhere, input recognized. A low harmonic followed, deeper than the ship's bones, language, Protovox, priority, maximum, voice authenticated, protocol Hades active, war mode restored. Lights surged to life like blood returning to a corpse. Red strobes snapped on along the corridor seams. A vibration rippled beneath the hull. External locks disengaged. An ancient power core hummed in the ship's abdomen. Outside the chamber, footsteps echoed sharply against the floor panels. 3 Elisari guards stepped into the compartment, rifles raised, scanning. They paused. Something in the air had changed. The vibration, the lighting, the feeling of a machine no longer dormant. One of them turned his head. Did anyone authorize this? No answer came. The lights flickered again. A sound like an exhale from the ship itself trembled through the walls. The guards looked around, uncertain. The one closest to the panel touched a comm control, but it spat back static. The second step toward Corkman hesitated. Something's wrong. No one moved. Corkman remained seated, shackled, eyes open. The ship, long thought dead, was awake again and watching. The voice returned deeper now, no longer neutral, but almost reverent. Vocal pattern match, 89% alignment with designated command signature. Major Jansen Corkman, Sector Marshal, Vox Bellum Command. Lineage trace confirmed. Jansen Corkman didn't blink. He just stared at the nearest lens embedded above the control node. Eyes lit not with surprise but memory. You still recognize his command line? He asked, voice raw but steady. The reply came with no delay. Confirmed. Intonation matrix aligns with legacy field operator. Authorization pending override by blood. Chain verification. Corkman exhaled once. My father, he murmured, so you still remember him. He leaned forward slightly, and this time his voice carried a command. Let's finish what he started. The panel blinked twice in acknowledgement. Around him the room changed, locks disengaged, restraints retracted with mechanical precision. The magnetic anchors binding his legs clicked open. Lineage verified. The AI stated. Command protocol updated. Access level, Omega Black. Initiating emergency systems handover. I've waited a long time. Red indicators flickered across the bulkheads. A pulse echoed through the deck as if the ship had taken a breath. Then silence, brief taut, followed by activation. Internal defense grid, online. Outside the chamber, the Elisari guards reacted too slowly. One of them, Officer Valrich, lunged toward the doorway. The bulkhead slammed down in a blink, crushing him mid-stride. Bone and carapace cracked under reinforced steel. Another, Lieutenant Corrin, the one who had mocked the prisoners earlier, swiveled his plasma rifle toward Corkman. "Don't move," he hissed. The turret above Corkman's head, hidden behind a false panel, dropped in complete silence and fired once. The bolt punched through Corrin's chest and into the wall behind him. The Elisari's segmented armor hissed as internal fluids gushed across the floor. The third Elisari triggered a distress beacon on his wrist. Static. Then gas from the vents above him. The air drained in a controlled vacuum pulse. His limbs spasmed as oxygen vanished. He collapsed forward, twitching once. Silence returned. Only Corkman remained standing, the ship humming beneath his feet like a beast recognizing its rider. Designation Echo Class confirmed, the voice declared. Vessel name restored, Echo Bastion. Corkman stepped forward, rotating his wrists, rubbing the bruises where the shackles had been. His body still ached, but something else moved in him now. Clarity. The blood at his feet wasn't victory, it was clearance. Echo Bastion, he said. Are you fully aware? Systems operational, combat memory fragmented, subroutines awaiting alignment, seal the compartment, lock all external channels, no signals go out, not even echoes. Understood. Communications grid disabled. Isolation protocol engaged. He stepped into the corridor beyond the entry chamber. Lights flickered to life ahead of his footsteps. Shadows pulled away from the corners. The ship lit itself for him, not with ceremony but with recognition. He walked slowly, hand trailing along the wall. Dust broke beneath his fingers. The panels bore scars, heat warping, shrapnel craters, carbon scoring from kinetic strikes. It was like walking through the bones of an old soldier who'd survived too long. A camera pivoted overhead, the lens focusing silently, tracking his progress. "Where's the command deck?" he asked. 2 levels forward. Ascension shaft functional. Manual access authorized. He reached a wall-mounted panel. The frame clicked and rotated. A needle, thin beam of light scanned his iris, then his blood through a dermal sample pad. The interface pinged DNA match. Jansen Corkman, progenitor, initiating contingency archive. The wall split open. A hologram surged to life, grainy at first, then stabilizing. The figure was unmistakable. Man in field armor, shoulders square, voice like iron over gravel. Dust shimmered in the projection's light, like particles rising to attention. Tactical Record 12-011, M. Corkman. Final contingency protocol active. If you're hearing this, it means the Bastion has returned to blood. My voice is no longer command. Yours is. Priority command is hereby transferable via bloodline validation under Protocol Hades. If you're hearing this, it means we were right, and it's too late to negotiate. The hologram blinked once, then collapsed into static. Corkman stood still for a moment, not for sentiment but calculation. He turned back to the AI. Status report. Structural integrity, 42%. Primary propulsion, 76% functional. Stabilizers degraded. Primary weapons offline. Concealed weapons operational. Tribulation count, 0. Command control fully delegated. Corkman nodded. We start with what we have. He looked toward the corridor ahead. Dim, flickering, but no longer dead. The ship didn't need resurrection. It needed a reason, and now it had one. A hatch rotated with a mechanical groan, followed by a pulse of cold air. Corkman stepped through into the forward analytics deck, where the floor curved subtly toward the center, like the ribcage of a buried leviathan. Dim light traced the seams of ancient terminals lining the walls. Consoles not used, since the collapse of Earth's outer colonies. Echo Bastion, Corkman said, his voice low. Show me what's left. The lights intensified. A grid of data streams emerged in front of him. Holographic, semi-transparent. Dozens of faded mission designations, fleet assignments, and transit logs scrolled past in fractured sequences. Human voices, broken by static, flickered in the background. Battle cries, screams, encrypted orders that led nowhere. This vessel was last assigned to Phantom Wing. The AI said, Echo Class, Tier 7, Special Operations Directive, Persistence Network. Corkman frowned. Persistence Network was dissolved with the failure of the Europa Initiative. Negative, records were sealed under Council override. Last independent mission node, codename Obsidian, access restricted by Vox-Steer encryption. Obsidian, Corkman stepped closer. Open it. The hologram paused, then flashed a sequence of glyphs, protovox layered and shifting, encryption active, linguistic key required. He inhaled slowly, focused, then whispered a precise cadence, 5 interlocked phonemes that twisted on the tongue like hot wire. The symbols destabilized, then restructured. The lock opened, access granted. The AI confirmed. The data stream widened into a rotating structure. Sector maps in dark red overlays, planetary markers annotated in old Terran script. Many of the locations were blacked out, labeled with Elisari designations. *null, denied, contaminated, untraceable. These were human colonies. Corkman muttered, erased, like we were never there. Correct, the AI responded. Marked as negated by Elisari command. But the Echo class maintained its own mapping subnet. 17 sites remain uncatalogued by current galactic registries. Corkman studied the projections. Some of the coordinates hovered near gravitational shears or debris fields marked as unsafe. Others sat quietly in dead sectors, just names now: Ember Reach, Sarah Fold, Echo Bastion. A faint tremor pulsed through the deck. Corkman turned toward the neural core interface. Status on your memory stack. The voice hesitated for the first time. Partial integrity. Core sectors damaged during Cathar capture event. War logs corrupted. Emotional registry locked. Show me what's left. A new interface opened. Audio fragments played. Distorted transmissions. Kinetic alarm sirens. Static punctuated by orders. A fallback vector 4. Initiate burn, do not return. Then another, deeper, commanding. We hold here until it breaks or we do. The voice belonged to Jansen Corkman. Memory restoration attempt available. Corkman stared at the interface. No, he said flatly. If you and this ship are still here, then he didn't survive. I don't need to hear how he died, not if it was at their hands. The prompt dissolved. No further question was asked. He turned away and approached the weapons control console. Lolled Earth issue, barely lit. He tapped in manual override. Begin calibration of all concealed systems. Confirmed. Deploying under diagnostic veil. Beneath the ship's armor, mechanisms stirred. Retracted housings split open. Miniature torpedo tubes folded outward. Microscopic plasma turrets realigned, rising from silent compartments. Antennas extruded from dorsal panels, shaped not to send, but to hear. The entire process occurred with no vibration, no sound. When it was over, the ship sealed itself again. No alert, no signal, only the sense that something old had stretched its limbs. No one outside would know what had just awakened. All ghost systems functional. The AI said, weapons online, frequency signature masked. Corkman stepped back. Good. Let's look at the prison. A holosphere extended from the command well, displaying Cathar in translucent detail. Dozens of modules spun in slow rotation across the orbital lattice. He watched the pattern of patrols, power lines, blind spots. The AI overlaid routes, conduits, access shafts. Begin environmental mapping, Corkman ordered. Focus on ventilation channels, analog relays, and heat suppression systems. Confirmed. New layers illuminated, some areas in blue, some in green. One section blinked orange. That's analog, Corkman said. No digital signature. Correct. Legacy shielding, low voltage, can be bypassed by acoustic resonance. He leaned in, eyes sharp. And how many humans are still inside? 74. Spread across 9 containment cells. Probability of extraction without interference, 0. 9%. Corkman gave a dry breath. We can improve that. He walked back to the central console and brought up the structural model again. Then he tapped 3 sections near the ring lattice of Cathar. If we compromise these anchor points, the ring destabilizes. If timed with propulsion sync, we get a gravitational collapse. No one will see the vector shift. By the time it starts, it's already over. Risk level, extreme. Exactly. He didn't pause. Start compiling acoustic disruption routines for locks, sensors, and emergency clamps. Use Protovox for triggers. Low band, untraceable. The AI responded instantly. Configuring now. I've found 4 viable points of infiltration via sublayer ducts. Program signal vectors. Corkman drew a sequence in the air. Symbols carved from memory. The AI stopped. Sequence recognized. Designation: Phantom Layer 7, Sector, Class Ghost Signal. You intend to reactivate the Phantom Layer. Corkman nodded once, just enough for them to hear what they spent generations trying to silence. He stood in front of the projection, watching as the acoustic patterns compiled across the hollow map. Every line, every symbol had a function. Every tone was a doorway. He didn't speak again for several minutes. The Echo Bastion waited, silent and ready, like a weapon not aimed yet, but already knowing its target. Somewhere deep in the hull, a relay clicked. No command had been issued. A burst of static hissed through the Echo Bastion's interior relay before collapsing into a low, rhythmic hum. 5 pulses, 1 pause, 3 more. In the dark curve of the operations chamber, Corkman leaned over the console and initiated the first acoustic cascade. Phase 1, he said, confirmed, replied the AI. Through sealed conduits and antiquated maintenance shafts, the frequencies spread. The prison's infrastructure, patched across cycles with incompatible species, tech responded with unpredictable latency. 1 valve hissed open before its command even finalized. A lock disengaged 2 sections ahead of schedule. The air itself felt unstable, like it had begun to listen. In the ventilation ducts of Cathar's lower quadrant, pressure release valves clicked as acoustic triggers passed through them. Duct clamps twisted. Dispersal units loosened from behind walls no one had opened in years. A rattle of motion detectors blinked offline, believing they'd been reset for inspection. Then came the fire. Trigger the anomaly, Corkman ordered. A simulated short circuit ripped through the atmospheric regulator of Block E. Sparks burst from behind a control panel. The oxygen compression loop failed just long enough to trigger the sector's emergency response protocol. On a grainy monitor, guards scattered in formation. Some sprinted toward the override station. Others began dragging containment units away from danger zones. False ignition sequence detected. The AI reported. Evacuation in progress. Redistribution of patrols initiated. Send the first signal, Corkman said. From the hull of the Echo Bastion, a loaf, frequency beam rippled through the antenna arrays, inaudible to most species, but built to resonate with archaic maintenance nodes throughout Cathar's substructures. The sound seeped into the walls. Beneath a fuel recycling station, hidden behind a rusted panel, a door clanked once, then slowly slid open. In cell block G, near the bottom of the orbital ring, a prisoner named Harlandry, gray, bearded, missing 3 fingers, long-thought catatonic, tilted his head as a faint beat echoed through the pipes above his bunk. He stood without speaking and moved to the wall, placing 1 ear to the vent. 4 pulses, 2, a pause, his lips parted, it's ours. Elsewhere, through access shafts and maintenance tunnels, the sound repeated, varying in tempo, never in pattern. Each cadence corresponded to an unlocking sequence. Each rhythm was a route. The signals weren't just tones. They were paths. Small groups of humans began to drift from their cells, where locks had disengaged mysteriously, where guards had abandoned posts to attend the fire. One by one, they followed the sound. The AI tracked every movement. First group inbound, 17 individuals. Second group, 12. Third group, static interference, rerouting. Adjust audio beacons. Corkman said, his hands working fast over the controls, adjusting commands mid-stream. Block 7C's tunnels are misaligned. Redirect the tone to the auxiliary vent path. Done. A subroutine chimed. Unknown behavior detected. The AI said, an internal monitoring node has deactivated 6 of its sensors. No authorization from this system. Corkman narrowed his eyes. You or me? Neither. Subnet behavior inconsistent with automated routines. He didn't reply immediately. Keep watch, he said. Keep it quiet. In the belly of the prison, flickering emergency lights gave just enough glow for shadows to stretch the length of corridors. One of the groups, 9 strong, barefoot, silent, moved through a service crawl space near Sector Delta. Their leader, a young man named Kalen Maher, stopped at a junction where 2 doors stood half open. Which one? Someone whispered. Listen, Kalen replied. A faint tone pulsed from the left. They moved. Behind them, from deeper in the dark, another panel snapped shut. One of the trailing men, F.N. Vale, former habitat engineer, turned and stared. Someone closed that, he said quietly. That wasn't us. Ahead, the corridor widened into an unused filtration chamber. One of the men stepped forward and froze. There's a panel open. Someone's been using it. Kalen approached and examined the terminal. No sign of damage, he muttered. Just realigned, cleaned, looks fresh. Anyone here? Effin asked. Silence. Another man joined them. Mason Grigg, limping badly but still alert. He bent beside the panel and tapped a diagnostic node. This interface was accessed 2 minutes ago. By who? No idea. No data trail. The others exchanged looks. Kalen straightened slowly. We need to move. Back in the Echo Bastion, the AI pinged again. Command: intermittent signal breach in audio relay 9. Someone is mimicking our acoustic pattern. Pattern accuracy exceeds random mimicry. Intentional replication likely. Origin unconfirmed. Could be internal hijack. Could be outside interference. Corkman didn't flinch. Isolate the path. Start staggering the pulses. Adjusting now. The audio beacons began alternating between variants, shifting pitches unpredictably. The effect was immediate. Most humans still moving followed with instinctive accuracy, but some routes diverged. 2 men ended up in a sealed waste corridor. A third was forced to double back through a collapsed shaft. Corkman recalibrated again. Too many paths open at once. He muttered, we're losing cohesion. I can throttle distribution, the AI offered. Do it, slow it down, and if anything repeats a sequence too cleanly, tag it. Minutes later, a new group arrived near Echo Bastion's boarding perimeter, sweating, bruised, but intact. Among them was a tall man with sharp features and a clean uniform, barely creased. He moved too carefully. His name, when asked, was Darren Holt. I don't know him, Kalen muttered. He wasn't in any of our blocks. He said he was in diagnostics. There's no diagnostics in Section 3 anymore. That wing got sealed cycles ago. Later, as the group moved down a service ramp, Effin paused again. I saw him at the panel earlier. He said under his breath, before we entered the filtration bay. He was watching it like it was talking to him. Kalen stared ahead. There's something else. I saw someone, something, messing with a comms port. When I looked, they were gone, but I swear it wasn't human. The air seemed to compress around them. Corkman, listening to the conversation through embedded audio relays, said nothing. But the tone of the Echo Bastion changed. Its sensors narrowed. Its lights dimmed. Deep within its spine, a targeting lens rotated once, then waited. And somewhere beyond Cathar's outer range, long-range pings began to echo back from space. The AI spoke. Fleet emissions detected. Elisari transponders, reinforcements en route. Corkman turned toward the viewport. "We're not ready for a fight," he said. "No," the AI agreed, "but they don't know what they've walked into." Alarms flared across Cathar's main spine. A deep, pulsing tone shook walls and vibrated through the bones of the prison's superstructure. The red glow of emergency lighting chased itself through the corridors. In the central chamber of the Echo Bastion, the AI voice cut through the noise. "Elisari fleet has entered outer orbital perimeter. 9 vessels, 4 interceptors, 2 line frigates, 1 command corvette, 2 unregistered signals on silent vector." Corkman didn't hesitate. "Lock external hangar doors, activate acceleration corridor, bring up the evac routes." "Done. Current evac progress. 30, 8 humans aboard, 14 in transit. Internal navigation updated." He moved across the deck toward the viewport as the stars shifted. Cathar's fractured ring rotated slowly beyond, eclipsing portions of the battlefield. The Echo Bastion shuddered once as it began to reposition. "Take us between the upper module and the vented corridor. Set a hold lock on Vector 3. The ship responded, tilting into formation. Magnetic anchors clamped the hull against the outer spine of the orbital scaffold. With that single maneuver, the Echo Bastion became the barrier, an armored threshold between the last fleeing humans and a converging fleet. The AI flickered, orbital rail signatures aligning, first wave of munitions incoming. "Deploy grav mines," Corkman ordered. "Target their staging arc. Let them walk into it." Compartments along the Echo Bastion's underbelly peeled open in sequence, releasing dozens of gravimetric mines. They spun silently into orbit, adjusting their vectors using microbursts. The leading frigate didn't even register them until the first mine detonated against its ventral stabilizer. The explosion folded space inward for a split second, twisting the surrounding debris and slamming a secondary mine into the port thruster. "First contact confirmed," said the AI. "Enemy formation destabilized." Corkman watched a trail of gas bloom from the wounded ship. "Maintain suppression. Keep their sensors guessing." Above them, the first wave of interceptors broke from formation and dove toward the ring. "Refractors now," Corkman barked. Ancient paneling slid across the Echo Bastion's dorsal line. The surfaces shimmered as embedded refractor mesh activated, splitting the ship's signature into 6 identical optical echoes. From space, 6 bastions now drifted in formation, each one a perfect clone of hull, signal, and movement. Shadow vectors synchronized, the AI confirmed, decoy motion initiated. The enemy fighters wavered, trying to track the real one. By the time they realigned, one of the clones had veered left, pulling a trio of interceptors into open space. The real bastion stayed still. Corkman turned toward the auxiliary helm. "How many are still out there?" 13, mostly clustered near the outer airlocks. "I'm going to get them." He dropped into the remote nav seat and activated the tethered capsule control. One of the evac pods, stuck against twisted hangar plating, came online. A grainy feed showed 7 people crammed inside, breathless, panicked, one of them bleeding from the scalp. He guided the capsule into motion manually, angling it around a corridor filled with debris. On approach to the docking bay, enemy fire streaked through the atmosphere. He rerouted power and slammed the pod sideways across the chamber, ricocheting it against the magnetic wall just enough to let it bounce under the fire arc and into the entry cradle. Capsule docked. Casualties, minor. He stood. Not leaving anyone behind. Another alert, new proposal. The AI said, "Auxiliary core mass available. Recommend deployment of unstructured debris and forced acceleration. Use hull fragments as kinetic scatter." Corkman nodded. "Fire junk at orbital speed. Looks like an accident." "Exactly. Do it." With a silent burst, the Echo Bastion expelled a payload of broken scaffolding, power tools, and armored plates. Junk from Cathar's own repair bays. The mass shot forward like shrapnel from a railgun. 2 fragments slammed into an approaching interceptor's intake ports. One of the Elisari frigates took a ricochet to the sensor array and spun out of alignment. Impact achieved. Secondary systems overloaded. No weapon signature detected. Let them explain that to high command. Behind him, someone stumbled against a console. Corkman turned sharply. A young prisoner, face pale, eyes wide, had backed into the support panel, fingers scrabbling for balance. "He must have hit a sequence by accident. Emergency beacon triggered," said the AI, broadcasting coordinates to all channels. "Suppression initiated. Overrided. Done. Beacon silenced." Corkman stalked over to the man. He didn't shout. He just pointed to the still, glowing panel. "If you touch a system again, you're going out the nearest airlock. Understand?" The man nodded silently and backed away. At the far end of the deck, Darren Holt stood quietly, one hand behind his back. Corkman watched him. He had no reason to be near the navigation grid, no reason to check the capacitor logs. The AI spoke in a lower tone. "Biometric analysis, 92% baseline human, variance in skeletal density and retinal sync, no match to prisoner logs, emotional variance during panic simulation, 0, action observed, walked directly to secured terminal." Corkman's eyes narrowed. "Run interface trace. Attempted access of protected system rejected under internal firewall. Trigger phrase used. Viron cascade protocol match. Elisari field override." Corkman didn't move. Block him. "Already done. Action halted before data breach." At that moment, Holt turned and began to walk casually toward one of the evacuation capsules. Corkman activated gravity override. The compartment lurched. Holt stumbled. Everyone else dropped to the floor, but Corkman grabbed a magnetic grappler from the wall and shot upward, locking himself to the ceiling rail. He swung once, hard, catching Holt across the shoulder and sending him spinning into the bulkhead. The man rolled, trying to reach for a sidearm that wasn't there. Corkman didn't give him the chance. He dropped, landed square on Holt's back, twisted his arm behind him, and slammed his head into the deck. The impact cracked something, bone, maybe mask. Blood hissed through synthetic layers. Holt gurgled something in a tongue not catalogued in any human archive. Corkman didn't care. He dragged the writhing figure toward the aft chamber, his boots slamming into the deck with each step. He opened a sealed door, threw Holt in like cargo. The panel closed with a hiss. "Pressurize it," he said, confirmed, "containment sealed, infiltrator neutralized." The AI confirmed, "Sector integrity restored. Continue with evacuation. Continue," Corkman said. The Echo Bastion rotated again, aligning its hull between the escape vectors and the growing enemy formation. Turrets realigned. Refractor decoys danced across the field. Through the viewport, new ships emerged from fold space, sleek, silver, and armed. The Bastion waited, not hidden, not retreating, just ready, and far above, something in the Elisari formation paused, as if sensing it. A direct hit rocked the Echo Bastion's starboard flank, sending a groan through the hull like an old beast taking a spear to the ribs. Sparks cascaded across the bridge as warning lights blinked red in rapid succession. The AI voice came sharp, clipped. Auxiliary thruster 2 offline, internal pressure holding, reinforcement beams compromised on Deck 7. Corkman didn't break stride. "Redirect coolant to Decks 5 and 6. Vent excess heat through dorsal veins." Confirmed. He passed the central viewport and caught the moment. One of the escape capsules trailing smoke, spinning erratically. "Capsule 11. The AI reported, acquiring trajectory. The feed zoomed. 11 humans packed shoulder to shoulder, barely visible through the smeared internal lens. Then a sharp flash tore through the screen. A kamikaze interceptor Elisari design, long, snouted and angular, plowed into the capsule's side and detonated in a silent bloom of fire and pressure. Corkman stood still, eyes locked on the flickering static. No one else moved. He tapped into the short-range network. Asterisk, "You won't be forgotten." Asterisk, no sound, just the words. Data imprinted in the memory logs of the Bastion, then the next alarm struck. Compression array destabilized, said the AI. Jump mechanism registering thermal surge. Core pressure climbing beyond safety margins. How long until breach? 5 minutes. System failure imminent. Options. Remote sealing with maintenance drones. Estimated survivability of drones. 12 seconds. Manual override available. Sector 32 forward conduit. The map appeared in front of him, glowing blue, and Corkman was already moving. You should not enter the chamber, the AI warned. Internal temperatures exceed safe limit by 91%. He didn't respond. As he crossed the corridor toward the access spine, panels above him cracked with heat. The lights failed in sequence. The emergency pathfinder cast long shadows across the deck. Rerouting cooling would extend jump time. The AI suggested, recommendation, divert human assets to internal repairs. They won't hold under pressure, Corkman said. I will. He turned left into a tunnel warped by earlier damage. The floor buckled with every step. A vent above his head hissed, releasing bursts of superheated steam. Halfway through, a side panel hissed open on its own. A mechanical limb, small maintenance scrayed, extended and touched his forearm lightly. The contact wasn't forceful, it was measured. He paused. The panel withdrew and shut. A moment passed, then he kept walking. When he reached the compression chamber, the heat was already visible. Distortion in the air, condensation forming instantly before evaporating again. 2 of the manual levers at the core were misaligned, vibrating against each other in erratic spasms. The steel around them glowed. Corkman pulled his gloves off. Then he reached forward and locked both hands around the twin handles. Metal seared through skin instantly. He gritted his teeth, adjusted his footing, and began to force the valves inward. Pressure mounted. His breath stuttered. Then, for an instant, he heard something, a voice distant, not the AI, not the ship. Footsteps on metal. Boots echoing in a hangar. A man shouting through static. Asterisk, hold the line, damn it, until it breaks or we do. Asterisk, then a deep sound, like distant thunder, rolled through his skull, an old voice, familiar, then it was gone. A pulse shot through the conduit, shocking his wrist and jerking his vision back to the present. The core groaned beneath him. Red light pulsed. His grip slipped as blood and sweat coated the metal. He shifted weight. The interface rejected his biometric read. Too much noise, too much damage, so he leaned forward. He pressed his forearm against the brace, shoulders shaking, and used the mass of his body to clamp the seals in place. Above, the AI voice changed. Your muscular response is failing. Your temperature has surpassed survivable thresholds. He didn't answer. Jansen, I'm still here. The words came out strained, barely audible. From a service tunnel behind him, a figure crouched low, quiet. A young man, dark-haired, soot, cover, watching through the open gap in a maintenance panel. His name was Thomas Lair. He had escaped through Sector Delta with 6 others. He had seen death, but nothing like this. He watched the commander, the man who had spoken almost nothing since their rescue, lean into a furnace, arms charred, back trembling, sealing a core that no machine could hold. Lair didn't speak, didn't call for help. He just watched and understood. Inside the core chamber, Corkman kept the pressure locked, his skin blistered, his fingers began to seize, the alarms faded to background noise. His heartbeat became a metronome, steady, cruel. The ship groaned again and held. The AI voice returned, subdued. Compression restabilized, field resynchronized, countdown resumed. No celebration. No acknowledgement, just silence, and the slow hiss of cooling vents beginning to breathe again. Metal groaned in protest as Cathar's internal struts buckled. First a slow, dull vibration, then a sharp resonance that traveled through the prison's orbital frame like a death knell. The sabotage Corkman planted had reached critical mass. Explosions bloomed in synchronized intervals across the gravitic anchoring nodes. Each detonation sent tremors through the orbital ring, severing decades, old support systems. Structural integrity of Cathar compromised, the AI announced. Multiple detonation points active. Internal tower collapse initiated. From Echo Bastion's bridge, Corkman leaned against a scorched railing and stared at the display. Crimson flashes erupted like arterial wounds across Cathar's skeletal form. Dust, fire, atmosphere, everything was bleeding outward. The prison's death had begun. "Bring up the evac lanes," he said. Final groups in transit. 4 capsules approaching through corridors theta, gamma, and dorsal shaft. Estimated impact fire in 87 seconds. He pushed off the railing, redirect 4 turrets, give them a corridor. At once, the Bastion rotated along its mid-axis, exposing its battered front end to the wave of fire coming from the Elisari blockade. Shields flared to life across fractured armor plates. A plasma barrage from the lead frigate slammed into the projection field, warping its edge but not breaking it. Keep the cover tight. Every second counts. From the viewport, he could see them, 3 manual capsules drifting like bubbles in a storm, propelled only by rerouted maintenance thrust and human desperation. The 4th was riding low, scraping vent ducts, sparks trailing from its tail. "Contact in 12 seconds, the AI said, synchronizing interception vector. Then the feed cut, interference, route signal, Elisari frigates aligning, coordinated fire incoming, projected impact, Bastion frontal core 70. 2% rupture probability. Rotate, show them the flank, prep grav mines." The ship tilted hard. Bulkheads slammed shut as magnetic fields rerouted energy through less damaged armor sectors. From the underside, grav mines launched like silent hunters, trailing ghost signatures invisible to Elisari sensors. 3 detonated on impact. The first tore through the bridge of a flanking frigate, shearing the top of its command tower into silent debris. The second buried itself into the hull of the second ship before igniting. A gravitational distortion twisted its plating inward, crushing its midsection like a collapsed lung. The third exploded late, disrupting a guidance array and sending the third frigate spiraling out of alignment. Enemy formation compromised, the AI confirmed. Window to reinforce of ACK zone opened for 62 seconds. Corkman's vision blurred momentarily. He blinked through it. Blood crusted around the edge of one temple. Every action cost something now. Status on core compression. Instability in secondary jump matrix. Compression loop failure detected. Core surge in 90 seconds. Evac protocol. Recommend isolation of Sector 12. Manual override to restore field integrity. Estimated success probability 6%. He didn't hesitate. He was already moving. The corridor to Sector 12 was more collapsed than intact. Wires hung like veins across the bulkheads. Steam hissed from ruptured coolant lines. Sparks danced along the floor, lighting puddles of conductive fluid. As he staggered down the narrowing path, pain pulsed through his arms. His hands were wrapped in scorched bandages from the previous override. The metal beneath him trembled. One of the main pylons had likely just cracked under strain. "Commander, reconsider," the AI urged. "Use automated systems. Drone survivability irrelevant. They won't hold. I will." He slammed open the hatch to the core compartment. Heat slammed back, waves of it. The valves were wide, shaking, about to rip loose from their brackets. The pressure would detonate the Bastion from inside out before the jump initialized. He grabbed the nearest brace. His skin seared instantly. Nerves screamed. Corkman didn't. He pulled. Metal ground against itself as the manual valves fought him. Bolts twisted. A tremor rolled through his back. He reached for the second handle. Shoulders pressed to the column. Blood from his palms slipped onto the floor. He set his feet wide, screamed through his teeth, and yanked the second lever inward until it locked. Alarms flared red above him. Then the screen blinked. A capsule feed appeared. Evacuation route Alpha 3, 11 people, a bright flash, the screen turned white, the feed disintegrated in silence. A fighter had torn through the capsule before it could reach the docking ring. It vanished. No fire, no wreckage, just erased by the impact. He stared at the emptiness on the screen, no tears, no words, just stillness. Then, with burned fingers trembling, he reached the console. A single transmission, text only, *, you won't be forgotten. * behind a maintenance wall, hidden from the heat, Thomas Lair stood again in silence. He had followed without knowing why, watched again without being seen. He saw the blood trail, the wounds, the way Corkman leaned against the Corps' console like a dying sentinel refusing to kneel. No theatrics, no performance, just a man absorbing more pain than a body should hold. And still holding the line, Corkman pushed himself upright. The system lights flickered from red to amber, vents hissed, pressure equalized, compression field stabilized, the AI reported, synchronization aligned, jump protocols functional. He staggered back toward the bridge, legs threatening to buckle every third step. Each breath rattled like broken glass in his chest. He arrived at the command platform, bracing against the central console. His hands left streaks across the metal. He looked up, open channel, live. He leaned into the mic, lips cracked, voice hollow and heavy. To any species still listening, you called us primitive. A pause. No music, no interference. Now you'll remember our voice. The line stayed open for 3 seconds, then closed. The AI voice lowered, micro, jump window stabilizing, detonation of grav ring in progress. Time to event, 7 seconds. Systems across the Echo Bastion hissed and flexed. Auxiliary panels dumped heat into space. Airlocks depressurized non-critical bays to lighten mass. The structure creaked from within, steel expanding, flexing, grinding, lights dimmed, power surged into the drive spine. The countdown began, 7, the metal shivered, 6. Red lights flared, then dimmed, 5. Corkman's hands clenched into fists, still wrapped in scorched fabric. 4. A tremor rocked the hull. 3. Flashes of collapsing towers lit the darkness beyond. 2. The void stretched open. 1. And then the world folded into light, not in silence, not in surrender, but with the roar of a name remembered. The remnants of Cathar ruptured in silence, no sound, only distortion. A massive gravitational bloom ignited where the prison had once orbited, twisting space into itself like a star folding inward. Towers crumpled into nothing. Slabs of alloyed mass torn apart by invisible teeth. The ring collapsed section by section, pulled by the very anchors that once held it stable. From within the Echo Bastion, the blast registered as a ripple. Pressure slammed into the ship's flanks. Support beams groaned as kinetic force bent the structure inward. External plates curled under stress. One of the outer airlocks collapsed entirely, crushing the vestibule behind it. A vent exploded in the mid-deck and showered the floor with liquid coolant. Then came the light. The drive core flared azure and spun outward in a controlled collapse, funneling every joule of energy into a single moment. The ship surged forward, riding the outer fringe of the implosion's kinetic wake. Space itself folded into a vortex, and the bastion vanished. No transition, just absence and then stillness. Somewhere beyond the known sectors, in a stretch of dark interstellar void without star or landmark, the Echo Bastion reappeared. It did not arrive gently. Panels snapped under pressure. An access wall in the medbay buckled. An interior pipe sheared its mount and spat hot steam into a corridor lined with unconscious bodies. The emergency lights flickered across the deck, casting long, jagged shadows. The core engine bay let out a low mechanical groan before falling silent. Every sound died, no engine hum, no data pulse, no weapons readying, just the quiet. Red lights blinked, then amber, then black, then nothing. Inside the crew compartments, human figures lay motionless. They weren't soldiers. They weren't ready. They had survived, but only barely. Some were curled instinctively. Others slumped against corners or each other. Dried blood streaked some of their faces. Torn uniforms. Fractured ribs, burned skin. They were not dead, but they were not whole. Thomas Lair lay across a broken support beam, still breathing, one leg trembling faintly. Near him, Kalen Maher's head rested against the frame of an access port. Mason Grigun, conscious, held a hand over his chest like he still expected shrapnel to find him. Jarek Alwyn was face down, silent, the bandage on his shoulder soaked through but intact. They were 61. No more. Above them, the AI voice flickered to life. Internal sweep complete. Human life forms 60. 1. Status, stable, vital signs minimal but present. A soft echo of breathing rose and fell through the ship's corridors, not rhythmic but enough. A quiet declaration of existence. On the bridge, Jansen Corkman remained in the command chair, his body slack against the restraints. The straps had cut into his chest during the jump. His hands, wrapped in scorched bandages, twitched once before falling still. His uniform was half-charred, smeared with grease and blood. One eye was swollen shut. The other stared unfocused into the dark ahead. He stayed silent. 16 seconds passed. No words, no motion. Then the AI resumed. System operational, emergency protocols disengaged, environmental stabilization complete. A low chime, external signal detected, range 0. 4 light seconds, origin, station Amber 9, status active, signature, Terran, tribulation, human. Corkman didn't react immediately. He closed his eyes, let the silence settle again, just for a few more seconds. Then he reached forward. His fingers barely made contact with the console, shaking, burned, slow. He pressed one key. A whisper escaped his lips, dry and raw, nearly inaudible. Then someone still speaking. Nothing else, no order, no demand, no flare of triumph, just acknowledgement. The ship moved, minimal thrust engaged. The Echo Bastion tilted along its yaw axis, aligning with the source of the human signal. Its engines powered up just enough to drift through the dark. No warp, no micro, fold, no acceleration spike, only motion. A single point of light grew on the edge of the navigation display. Amber 9, one station. One dot, one direction. Through the forward viewport, space stretched infinitely. No stars were visible yet. Only shadows and the dim suggestion of movement. Inside the ship, one by one, the systems clicked back to life. Autostabilizers corrected the pitch. Heat exchangers vented excess plasma. Life support kicked into a low hum, feeding recycled air into every corridor. The Bastion kept moving. No orders needed. The path was already chosen. From a camera mounted outside the hull, the ship looked like a ghost. Scorched, asymmetrical, armor cracked along its spine. One side still vented residual coolant in long silver streams. Turrets sat still. The refractor mesh was down, no false signatures, no illusions, just one vessel alone, moving. And in the vast silence behind it, the last fragments of Cathar's ruins drifted as dust. Pulled by nothing, seen by no one. The transmission logs of the Elisari fleet would later show only static when asked to account for what had happened. No video, no telemetry, only silence, and then a record of a jump signature that didn't match any existing species. But in the Echo Bastion, nothing needed explanation. Corkman's hand fell away from the console. He didn't look back. The humans aboard the ship would survive. Some would walk again. Some would not. Many would carry scars they would never speak of. All of them had followed something. An echo through the dark, a resonance no other species could hear, and now that echo had direction. The Bastion kept drifting toward Amber 9, not in hope, but in defiance. Not for glory, but for memory. In the silence of space, the sound came back, not through speakers or code, not even voice, just the hull resonating faintly with the force of forward motion, a vibration, low and steady, like breath. A voice once denied, still speaking, still here, still human, and moving forward.